So welcome back. So what we're going to do now is actually move to the tech part of our presentation. And I just want to go ahead and give you a little bit of background in how we created the tech tools for substitutes part. We had quite a few discussions between ourselves as well as between us and principals about what a tech tool might look like for substitutes in regards to how you might help students facilitate, or you might facilitate for students getting through a class where they heavily use Seesaw, Google Classroom, Zoom, and things like that. So for this part, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Number one, I will not be monitoring chat. Ben is taking over chat monitoring duties. And the way I think that this is going to best work, and the way that we've talked about this might best work, is we are going to really be communicating how these tools are going to be used in a normal substitute situation inside a physical classroom, and seeing how you're going to kind of go through those and how you might utilize these tools with students in order to facilitate learning. If you have a nuanced question, and by the way, most of the way that we go through these is going to be really based on a beginner to Seesaw, Classroom, Zoom, and Meets perspective. If you have a nuanced question, a question about a certain feature in a platform, or in a, sorry about that, just got distracted there. If you have any real specific questions about tech tools, Ben is going to be putting those tech tools into, or those questions into, a Google Doc, and we can reach out to you individually with some resources. So if you would, please make sure, first of all, that your name is correct, or that you put your name in there. And if you have a specific question about a tool like Meets or Seesaw or something like that, please name the tool, Seesaw, Google Meets, and then put your question in regards to that, so we know exactly who to get back to, what tool you're referencing, and the specific question that you have. So the way that we went about this is we wanted to set up for you some basic understandings of the main tech tools that would be associated to your facilitating learning in any kind of classroom. So really, we just focused on high priority tech, the tech that you are most likely to come into contact with in your substitute, in your day as a substitute. So I want to just point out really quick that some of the biggest hardware tools that you're going to need are definitely use and knowledge of the phone for attendance, office, and emergencies, projector for sure, and then the teacher computer if you have program access. From a programmatic perspective, you're going to need to know about Zoom for sure, Google Meets. Both of these are video conferencing platforms, so we might use these in a couple of different scenarios that we'll talk about in the next slide. Seesaw, which is what they're using is a learning management system, so a place where a student might see a video of a teacher or learn about an activity. And then Google Classroom. Seesaw is going to be more in your K-5 realm. Middle school, high school do not use Seesaw at all. And then Google Classroom kind of spans K-5, but it's primarily used in the middle school and the high school for a learning management system. So when you think about what does your morning checklist look like, we talked about it's really important to get there early and figure out what kind of plans you have as a substitute and the teacher has left for you. And so in the physical classroom, when we think about your main morning checklist, we're thinking about scour those sub-plans for tech. What kinds of things might the teacher reference that you're going to be using throughout the day? Now, of course, it is really important, and we've communicated, and principals have communicated to teachers, that it is very important for them to be explicit in the tech that they're going to use and how they're going to be using it within the scope of a lesson. Definitely make sure you know where that phone is, and make sure that you are able to hook up to a projector. And hopefully you might have access to the teacher computer. Now, a hack around that is we do know that teachers will oftentimes bring their computers home. So definitely your key component is going to be reaching out to your cohort and figuring out how they use that technology in their classroom specifically. Ben, I saw you kind of pop up. Did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to, since we do have some subs who are new to the district, something to be aware of on the phone. There's a button that says directory. And if you know the first name of the person who you're trying to call, then you start by punching in, and it's like old school phone dialing where, number one is ABC, number two is DEF. So you punch in the first letter of their name, and that will actually let them connect in. It'll give you a list of who you want to dial. The other thing to know is the extension for each building that goes to the front office. So like Upper Blue is 1800. So if you pick up your phone and see what the phone number is, that 4-digit code, the first 2 digits should be the building. So Snowy Peaks is 1900, Breck is 1300. It'll get you to the front desk.
Well, thanks for pointing that out, Ben. And I think probably what we'll do too, in this slideshow, as we go back and make it a more robust resource, is we will just add like the front office numbers. So Ben, would you just mind putting that in our shared doc? Just put the front office numbers. Any of those front office numbers, like the 1800 or the 1500, will connect you directly to the school's front office staff. They're going to be a key place for you. So Ben, if you would put that in the notes, we'll just put a list of each of the front desk numbers for the schools. That's pretty easy to do there.
Yep.
So for any of these physical classroom components, your key resource is going to be your cohort partner and or the front office staff. So when you walk in the morning, just a quick list of emergency numbers, which would be that front, like the 1500 desk, in order to get in touch with them or the principal. And then as far as the projector is concerned, there are a lot of different ways of connecting to the projector. The best person to ask about that is going to be your cohort partner, because they'll be the person that's normally teaching with that other person every day. And so that will be a good way to figure out how can you access the projector if it's needed in your lessons. Moving on from the physical classroom to the digital elements, we really want to just narrow this down to how you can access the key digital tools that will be possibly included in your day. So those key digital elements are Seesaw or Google Classroom. And in talking about how you are going to access Seesaw and Google Classroom, which are management platforms, and I'll show you what they look like, you're really going to want to be accessing that from a student perspective. So finding a student to buddy up with for the period or for the day, and being able to say, hey, can you show me your classroom Seesaw if it's mentioned, or your classroom Google Classroom, so that you can see how the students are expected to move through that. The way that those things are really set up is they have very clear indicators of if a student has something to do, and in their feeds, what they will call their feeds, kind of look like Facebook. If you're on Facebook, both of these very much look like Facebook. So when you go into the stream in Seesaw or into the stream in Google Classroom, you're going to see a chronological order of things that students are going to be seeing and you are going to be seeing as well. So if the teacher is asking you to go to Google Classroom and work through things, all of the time those things are going to be at the top, and being able to see the way the student is accessing it is going to be the best thing for you in facilitating that classroom instruction. Zoom and Google Meets, we know that we're going to have some unexpected times when you might be asked to either connect to a teacher via Zoom or be a substitute via Zoom. And so those two video conferencing tools are the two that the district is using. That is all. You might see a preference between one or the other in different schools. Most classrooms, most schools are heavily using Zoom, particularly because of what you saw Ben modeling for us very well in our last part of this, or in our first part of this session, which was breakout rooms. We had a question about Google Meets and breakout rooms, and currently Google Meets does not do breakout rooms. So if you're going to utilize breakout rooms as a behavior management tool and as a way of helping students get together and really co-construct meaning and understanding around topics, you're going to want to be using Zoom. So we're going to start with Zoom. Zoom is a video conferencing software that allows us to connect with our students and teachers and classrooms. The potential scenarios that you might use Zoom in a substitute assignment is that if you're subbing in a distance or remote scenario, you are going to need to be able to join or host a Zoom meeting. And if you're connecting to a teacher from a physical classroom, so Ben mentioned that there was a sub last week who had the teacher actually zoom into the classroom, and then the teacher taught and the substitute facilitated that learning in the classroom. So there's really just two basic things you will need to know: how to join a Zoom meeting, and then how to host a Zoom meeting. Now, there are a couple of things that are very important for you to do before your first sub assignment, because to access Zoom, you're going to need to have a Zoom account, and you're going to need to have that app either on your phone or on your computer. There are actual downloadable apps that are going to be needed on your computer in order to access Zoom and take advantage of the features that you need to do. So the way I've set up the next 4 slides is they are key tools, and each of those key tools will have 2 or 1 video that is a basic tutorial that I have watched and have seen that it's current and that it's pretty comprehensive about what the tool is and how you might use it. In the Zoom meetings perspective, what I put up for you here is the ability, so before you are in a substitute situation, it's very important that you create a current Zoom account. I put the links here to sign up for free. It is a secure platform. They don't send you a bunch of spam or anything like that. Zoom has been a really key tool in our instruction, and they've been a really great partner for us. So signing up for a Zoom account is not going to be, it won't expose you to any risk, and it won't expose you to a bunch of spam or things like that. The one thing that I will say about that is you all have Google emails. I would sign up with your work Google email, because the one thing that will do is allow you to apply for a free account that will take any time limitations off of your Zoom account. So initially they'll say, hey, in a free Zoom account, you get 45 minutes limit. You can actually apply for a teacher account, which will give you unlimited number of minutes on your Zoom. And then you'll have all those access to breakout rooms and such. You're also definitely going to need to download Zoom onto your device. That will give you the ability to schedule meetings and join them immediately. It's a very convenient tool. The links are, again, right here. They're either linked in the blue text or in the purple. So you need to make sure that you have the Zoom account, that you download that center. And then one thing I would really recommend that you do is taking a couple minutes to just join a test meeting. When you click this link, it will just join your test meeting. There will be nobody else in that test meeting. It will help you make sure that your video and that your audio are working, so that when you go into that classroom or that you are joining that link, that you make sure that your audio and video are both working well. So on the side, you'll see on the side of these videos, I put, or on the side of this slide, I've put 2 videos. One is a real basic tutorial. It goes from, this tutorial helps you sign up for your Zoom account, and it takes you all the way through some of the better features in Zoom, like whiteboard and breakout rooms. So that's a really great tutorial. I believe it's about 15 to 20 minutes long. It won't take you that long to get through. And then there's a video on the top that covers how to join a meeting. So I see we got some chats going on there. Ben, do you see any that we need to address right now?
Rhonda, actually, I'd love to clarify verbally. You asked what the phone app was for Apple, and I wasn't sure if you were asking about Zoom or a different platform.
It was for Zoom, and I have it. It says Zoom Cloud Meetings.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. One thing that I really would suggest is the ability to create breakout rooms and facilitate, like they have some polls in there. They have whiteboards, screen sharing, stuff like that. Actually facilitating in a classroom or to a classroom of kids, a desktop or a laptop is a really key tool to be able to do that for an extended amount of time. And
I would also, for just as a Zoom trick, a lot of people have linked it into their calendars so that they have all the links in their calendars, and Zoom allows you to do that really easily. If you post a Zoom link to your calendar, make sure that you open it through Zoom. Go to zoom.us, and actually launch Zoom. Otherwise, it launches you as a participant and not as the facilitator. And so all of a sudden you're in your own Zoom and you can't run the breakouts, and that's why. So make sure that when it's your meeting, you still go to Zoom to actually start the meeting officially.
Yep, and I would really suggest too, making sure that you test that capability out with a friendly group, FACs or get-togethers that I cannot even count them, but it really is good just to run that with a couple of friends or something like that before you get started with students, because as we know, adults are much more patient with tech snafus than students are. So just being ready to test those things and make sure that you can run a meeting, join a meeting, and then some of the basic tools would be great to be able to try out before you hit that kind of situation where you're doing that with kids.
And Cindy, I saw your question. We'll pass that on to Tricia as well after. We'll get back to you on that, but make sure that's included on Tricia's list.
Thanks.
Any other questions before? Cool. So the way you might utilize this slide is make sure that you have gone through those 3 steps, if you haven't already, of signing up for an account, downloading that app, and then testing your computer's audio and video. The 2 videos that are on this page are very comprehensive. It will run you from signing up to running you through what each of these is capable of and how you might use those in a classroom or just in a general meeting. Okay. So again, those key skills: join meeting, host meeting, schedule meeting. Those are 3 basics that you're going to need to make sure that you have before you substitute. So the next video tool and the video conferencing tool that you might come across is Google Meet. Google Meets and Google Zoom work very much the same. They share a lot of the same capability. So they'll obviously being able to see different number of students in grid views and things like that. You can record in both Zoom and Google Meet. The primary differences that you're going to see between Google Meets and Zoom is that Zoom, again, is the only one that has the breakout capability, but otherwise they're very similar platforms. There aren't a ton of people that use Google Meets, but you will see that that is the primary for Summit Cove in particular. They use Google Meets in their school. So it is something that you might need to use. Again, those key skills: join meeting, host meeting, schedule meeting. I've posted a Google Meet tutorial here. I believe that tutorial is, again, about 15 minutes, and it'll give you the overview of how it's used. It'll run you through each of the buttons, and it will show you the capabilities of Google Meets. Are there any particular questions that anyone has about Google Meets that we can answer right now?
Peter, take a look in the chat.
Okay.
Do you know the answer to that, or should I just kick that into our running list?
So we're looking at, is there a Google Meet extension that has been tested? I would say that on my Google Run phone, my Android phone, I do have a Meets app. Although we would have to get back to you on the Google Meet extension from a Google browser. If you're also using Google Chrome, which is the other thing that we haven't really talked about, if you don't run Google Chrome on your computer or on your native device, I would really suggest making sure that you have Google Chrome. All of these, we are, as a district, a Google district. That means that students all have Google usernames. They use Google Chromebooks. So all of those things have been optimized particularly for Google Chrome. When you go to Google Chrome, and this detailed tutorial will actually run you through that, it'll run you through how to actually access Google Meets. And it's as simple as actually going to meets.google.com. So I'm not sure that we do have an extension. However, the primary way that you will access Google Meets would be through meets.google.com. depending on your device. But those, again, that tutorial will run you through those. Oh, great clarifying question. So you think you meant to ask about an extension for breakouts? Yeah. In regards to Google Meets, in order to do breakout rooms, you actually have to have an enterprise account, and that's something that we're looking at moving to. Hopefully in the future, Reed, like hopefully January on, we're going to be looking at trying to move to an enterprise account for Google Meets, or just for Google in general, which would give us that capability. But those are just things that people are, that Google is rolling out right now because they see how beneficial breakouts are, particularly for education and meetings. So we're going to definitely be working on trying to move over to Google Meets in the future. But for now, Zoom is a great platform, and the only platform that we know of that we can utilize that uses breakout rooms. Awesome. Thanks for clarifying that. That's great. So this is a great tutorial. Please take the time to go through Google Meets, give it a try out, do a little FAC with some friends, and just make sure that you can use those. So Google, the next two slides are really based on our LMSs, which is short for Learning Management System. Just a quick overview on Google Classroom and Seesaw. The reason that we're heavily using Google Classrooms in Seesaw is because of the ability to be flexible in remote situations. And so students are all right now really being given the skills to learn in Google Classroom and in Seesaw. These are basically places. Let's see if I can actually just kind of show you what's going on with these. So I pulled up Seesaw. So Seesaw, this is actually a student view. So when you go into a substitute situation in an elementary classroom, if the teacher does not have, if they are talking about Seesaw, students will be able to show you something that looks exactly like this. So what you can see here is I'm currently in Miss Webb's class, so I'm a student. And what you'll see here is there's a feed, again, just kind of like that Facebook feed. Students will see this and they'll see something like art activity number 2, and there'll be instructions, and you'll see this activities button. So when they go in, if a teacher said, please have them complete the art activity number 2 in Seesaw, you would ask students to access their Seesaw, which they do have an extension. So it's super easy for them to access it. It's just going to be like right up here. And they'll go in and you'll be able to see that they clearly have an activity that is aligned to their class and assigned specifically to them. And you'll be able to see with students, boy, I need to do these activities. So if a teacher sends you to Seesaw, you'll see something like this. Again, as well, you might see something like in a Google Classroom. A Google Classroom is also an LMS, and what you'll see here is, again, a Facebook-like screen that students will see the most recent things on the top, and there's a classwork button that says, okay, here's my assignment, and this is what I need to do. So from a substitute's perspective, when you're coming in and facilitating what the teacher is asking students to do, they're very simple platforms to access. And you should be able to actually do that from the student's view with a student or looking at a student's computer. So the substitute plans will run you through, hey, this is the time when they need to do this in Seesaw or this in Google Classroom. And so you should be able to just pair up with a student and say, can you show me this Google Classroom or Seesaw? And you should be able to walk students through that. What I've done on these two slides is just giving you a couple key video questions. So when we think about going in and facilitating learning for students, we definitely need to make sure that the key skills that we have are the ability to access Classroom from a student computer, if nothing else, to view the stream, which is kind of like a what's happening in class, and then view the classwork stream as well. So the stream is like announcements, and the classwork stream is really like what they need to be doing. So when you watch this video, this is a pretty comprehensive video that goes to see, that outlines how students will access it, and then each of the parts. It runs you through each of the parts and how students would access this. Again, this is from the student perspective because that's what you're going to be seeing as a classroom facilitator of learning as a substitute. And we'll talk about the difference in just a second. But the key questions there would be, where do students view teacher announcements? How might the teacher use the stream to guide the class? Where can students find their classwork? And then how can students complete assignments? Is there anybody out there who has any great thoughts on Google Classroom and how that's been utilized? Okay, so Ben, are there any questions that we can answer?
Right now, it looks like we're doing all right. Trying to capture a couple of the different questions and things that have come up over, like, what does that look like as teachers drop into long-term sub positions?
Yeah.
And going to be a deeper conversation. So I've got that recorded. We, just so that everyone knows, Peter and I have a running list of questions. If it's something that's easy for us to talk about right now, we're taking care of it. If it's something that is a deeper answer than that, we're recording it in a page that's shared with both Tricia and Hannah as well, to make sure that we're going to be able to address substantively the questions that are going to come up, but we can't necessarily do in the 30 seconds here.
Yeah.
And I would good shape there.
Okay. And I would say also too, that the way we built this was really from a basic understanding. We just want you to be able to understand what students will see and then how you can help walk students through those things. We know that it would be mind-numbingly boring, especially with all of you who have such high levels of expertise on these things, for us to go through and say, here is Seesaw, and so, and here is Google Classroom. And so those tutorials are meant to do exactly that. I rustled through 1,000 different tutorials just to find one where it would explain how a student might look at Google Classroom and Seesaw from a lens of them, and they go through each of those buttons so that you'll really be able to understand and kind of take at your own pace, what might that look like for a student, and how might a student work through something that the teacher has assigned. So then Seesaw is, again, the same thing. It's a learning management system. When a student goes into it, they'll see a Facebook feed, a Facebook-esque feed, and then they'll have some activities to actually do. The key would not be joining a meeting, host a meeting, schedule a meeting. I apologize, I messed those up. But here are your key questions, which would be, where do students view activities? How will students complete activities? And then what tools will they be able to use to complete a response? One fundamental difference between Seesaw and Classroom is that oftentimes in Classroom, students will be directed to an outside, either link to a document or an outside website. In Seesaw, in order to make that a more closed environment, when students do an activity, what they're actually going to be able to do is use on-screen elements to complete that activity. So it doesn't pull them out to a different website. Students are actually using on-screen pens, text boxes, and things like that in order to complete the activity. So in this video tutorial, the tour guide does run you through how might a student complete an activity in Seesaw. That's something that's going to be really important for you to understand, because what will basically happen is, as the students say add response, there will be a bunch of pens that pop up, and the kid will be able to do that. Now, that being said, students have been already using that for quite a bit. So from a technical perspective, there shouldn't be a whole lot of questions to answer in regards to how to actually do a response on an assignment. So you might just need to redirect kids a little bit, but we've really encouraged teachers to be sure that they are onboarding students to Seesaw and to Classroom in a substantive manner so that they know if they go remote, those kids know how to use those tools. So hopefully, at the time you get in to the classroom, they will have a high level of at least efficacy around how to use these tools. Are there any particular questions about Seesaw that we should hit right now? Oh, great. The how-to video. So Liz, thank you for chiming in. That it's a good tutorial on how to use it for students. Cool. So these particular slides, definitely Zoom meetings, Google Meets, Google Classroom tours, Seesaw tours are going to be key resources for you to come back, watch those videos in the Zoom and Google Meets categories or on those slides. Please make sure that you've tried those things so that you know, A, that you have the technical downloads and things that are ready for you to be able to use those, and then B, that you have the comfort level with those to be able to welcome students in or welcome teachers in to use them in a manner that makes sense and isn't stressful for you. In regards to Google Classroom and Seesaw, please watch those videos to make sure that you understand the tour from a student's perspective. That's going to be your key tool if a teacher is talking about Google Classroom, if a teacher is talking about Seesaw, so that you know where the assignments might be, you know where students might look for announcements, and so that you can kind of guide from over the shoulder in a group environment. Just a couple of current event hacks. We started talking about current events, and one thing that you are able to, well, first of all, thanks to Renee for pointing out the CNN 10-minute current events videos. We know that particularly right now, it would be really important for you to pre-watch that 10-minute video to be prepared with some driving questions, to be prepared with some reflection questions or group activities or something like that, but also to make sure that we know that there's a ton of stuff out there in the news right now. So make sure that it's something that you are comfortable talking about and talking about students with, as well as that appropriate level. Renee, I don't know if you, it seems like you have used this one before. I've used a couple of different ones. Maybe if you want to chime in with just a couple of ways that you have used it in the past, or if there have been any, sorry, tongue-tied, ways that, or like some things to watch out for. We know, I mean, definitely today, when I looked at it, there were some, we were talking about wildfires, which would definitely be something that you could consider, but I'm sure that there are a bunch of other ways that, or other topics that we might need to be prepared for coming up in the CNN 10.
Yeah, it's current events, like you said. I mean, they're going to show wildfires. They'll show things on COVID. In fact, the last one that I showed right before the whole shutdown, so it was very eerie. It was on COVID, you know, in China and how things had shut down, and then lo and behold, right? It'll show things on politics, but it gives you video, and it, you know, it's not one-sided or anything. It, you know, presents it, and then you could have a discussion or whatever. That's why I said it's good for upper elementary, probably 4th and 5th maybe, but definitely middle school and high school. So, and it's 10 minutes long, and they always have a little quiz and do a shout out to a school somewhere in the country and things like that. So it's just a quick 10-minute current events. Yeah.
Well, that's really great. Thank you so much for sharing that. We know that, you know, kids and current events, it is important that for them, they are exposed to these things otherwise. And just be, you know, just be prepared to some of those conversations that might come up in regards to politics and things like that. You know, what are some ways that we might be able to deflect things if students have really strong political views? You know, if you're talking about COVID or you're talking about wildfires and a student has been particularly impacted by that, that might come up, right? So how might you be able to onboard that kind of thing in a caring manner that helps students think and also helps them stay in a safe place where they can process, learn new information, have great interactive group conversations. So thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate that.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. The other thing that you will have access to if you want to look at it, and this is not a must do, but as a district, we have purchased access to a program called News ELA. And News ELA, as you can see there, it's a online news as literacy-based platform. Some of you may have used it before. And basically what it is it will give you articles that are leveled by grade level so that you can make sure that you're looking at the right reading level for students. And they're also sorted by topic, and there are topics out there like social emotional learning, math, science, current events, things like that. This is another great tool that you could use to put in your teacher toolbox. as a Summit School District employee, you do have free access to this. All you have to do is sign up with your school provided account. So there's a couple of current event hacks that you can put in your substitute toolbox. Are there any other current event hacks that are out there? Any other good digital resources that we can mention right now so that we put that out there that somebody might write down to check out? I'm having.
There's a thread that's come through Vicky and Tony that I want to lift up on a slightly different topic, asking about if subs bring in their own devices, whether they can connect to the school network. And I answered the question two different ways. One way was through like a cell phone and whether cell phones work. And at the secondary schools, some of the networks will not work. They intentionally have those kind of shut down because of all the student devices. But if you're bringing in like your own laptop, you should be able to connect with Summit. Summit 99 is the login and password across the district, and I put that in the chat. One thing that you might consider is most of the projectors are connecting in through an HDMI dongle, which is the actual connection. So if you've got a computer and want to make sure that you're going to be able to talk to the school projectors, if you bring in your own connection, that dongle, which is the converter between the computer and an HDMI, that might be a way to, kind of set yourself up for success there. And then the other question that came up, Tony asked if schools could possibly have loaner laptops. And that's something that we have already added to our list. The answer to that, but
So let's get out of here, right? Leave. Right here, leave. Leave. Got it. Leave meeting. Okay.
Looks like somebody
Yes.
might need to
Yeah,
mute.
that was you.
If you can. Perfect. Yeah, and there's always, we have a really great tech team. One thing that we didn't put in there was the contacts to the tech team. If you're looking forward to going into a school and you want to talk about what your computer connection might need to be, a lot of times pictures are really helpful, and we can help kind of diagnose sort of like what might you need to connect and things like that if you're really nervous about it. Obviously, we want to make sure that we are as comprehensive as we can be to support you in the best way possible. So if you are bringing in your own device, and if you wanted to test that internet connection, you could come to Central and we could work through that stuff with you, obviously with your masks and protocols and stuff like that. But we are happy to make sure that you are ready to the best of our ability as you come in.
So there's another question that came in on a different channel asking about being able to record easily. And we've actually been using Zoom for that. As you load Zoom, you can tell it to record, and then it'll drop it down onto your computer. And that file you can then upload to a Google Drive. It's been a really simple, and it's also given us the option to screen share when we need to, or have us when we need to, and kind of move back and forth. And so you create a little bit of that more personal dynamic. So just wanted to lift that up for the group as well.
Yep, and the thing that I would add on to that, and I would add on to actually everybody, and this is something that we really talk about in our district very heavily, as we think about using digital tools and providing access to the outside world, we also really want to be careful about that access to the outside world. So if you are recording, if you're recording video of yourself, obviously, to give out to students, that's a different story. If in Google Meets or in Zoom, you are recording lessons for whatever purpose that might be, it is very important, supremely important, that that video go nowhere else. You can use it as a tool for yourself, obviously, but students are not to be their likenesses are not to be put out on the internet for any other purposes. Also, if you're thinking about when you're creating your digital toolkit and you're getting students access to an outside video or something like that, we just want to be really careful. We know that there's a lot of political ads out there and stuff like that on YouTube that might pop up. So when you start to think about what kinds of tools might I bring into my classroom, into my classroom practice or into my digital toolkit, we need to be very careful about what exposure that gives to students. For example, again, the YouTube, if you see, you know, some other ads and videos and stuff that pop up, we just need to be cognizant of how those pop up in front of students. Also, if we're going to take students to an outside website, we need to have vetted that before, and we do not want them to be signing up for any kind of account on their email, or really at all, because we don't want them to be exposed as far as personally identifiable information, or things like some websites have group chats and things like that. So we just have to be really careful about how we direct students going outside of our kind of little bubble that we have created for them.
So adding some other things, there's some other pieces coming up. Someone was asking about, what about recording for kids? Flipgrid has been a fabulous platform for that, as far as students being able to do some recordings back and forth and then being able to comment on each other's recordings and things like that.
Yeah.
Let's see, there was a question.
I'm going to jump on that real quick, Ben, actually. So when you're thinking about, we do have a bunch of tools, and I'll put the website link into the slideshow. I'll just kind of show us we do have a lot of tools that we have approved for district use. And if you are creating instruction, if you are crafting instruction like that, we do have a bunch of tools. I'll put that into our slideshow. I've got a really great grid that actually this News ELA grid came from, where you'll see a tool that we support and that we are familiar with, and then you'll see what it is, and then you'll, and this is I only put one link in here for Newsela, but for other tools like Flipgrid, I've put the tool, the link, what it is, and then a bunch of tutorials on how to use that. Now, we didn't put all of that into this particular presentation because we know that really right now we're focusing on what are the things that you absolutely have to know to get in there. But we do have a lot of great tools out there that we can provide some tutorial training on moving forward if you're actually crafting that instruction. And Flipgrid they don't have to be signed up for anything. Anything else, Ben?
No, I think that unless I've missed something, and if I've missed something, please someone turn off your microphone and jump in. But I think that we're at least caught up on the chat as far as the questions we've gotten so far. And Trisha, I appreciate you jumping in with some of the logistics questions about Wednesdays. Thanks for jumping in on those.
Awesome. Awesome. So I just want to bring that back down to say, make sure, please, that before you have done your first subbing, make sure that you're set up on Zoom. Make sure that you understand how Google Classroom and Seesaw might work, as well as Google Meets. That can all be done through these videos. They're pretty comprehensive, and you'll go in with an understanding of what students will be able to see and a way that you can set up Zoom. We did also want to just pull out there, we know that there will be some times for long-term subs and exceptional circumstances where you might need to take the reins as a lead instructor. And that's the time where you're going to really need to engage in training for higher level use of Seesaw, Classrooms, and Zoom. We do have those things in place. We didn't want to touch base on that today, but we have some great support for you to be able to know how Zoom, Classrooms, and Seesaw look from an instructor perspective. Seesaw and Classrooms all have co-teacher environments, so you won't actually have to create a bunch of stuff. You'll be able to integrate into Seesaw and Classrooms as a co-teacher in the case that you are needing to be, posting. I'm sorry, my Zoom is acting funny. But if you're going to be in a position where you need to post assignments, where you need to manage activities and things like that, there are co-teacher roles in Seesaw and Classrooms, so you won't have to onboard your own classrooms and things like that. And we do have other ways for you to explore other instructional tools like Nearpod, which is one that is pretty frequently used in our district, we do have tutorials. We will have a subscription for you so that when and if you go into a long-term sub or an exceptional circumstance where you are going to be the lead instructor, we have that support for you in the tutorials that you'll need to be able to take the reins as a lead instructor. Any other questions that we need to address before we finish this out? Awesome. Ben, you want to take the reins?
Oh, we just wanted to, again, coming back to that kind of best practice of modeling of these were the 4 pieces that we were hoping to be able to really engage in today. That learning about preparation and what do we need to think about before the day we're in there, thinking about that relationship piece and how pacing and content structure and discussions and communications with student to lead directly to their engagement. Thinking about how we're communicating back to whoever the teacher was so they know what happened throughout that day. And then spending some time talking about the tech tools. Those were the 4 pieces that we were really trying to engage in today. And again, wanted to kind of say thank you so much. We really, really appreciate learning with you. You guys walk in with so much expertise, and the things that you do to support our school system and to be a part of our district and to be part of our learning and teaching are so important. So wanted to really express our appreciation for everything that you do to make our system successful. Thank you.
Yep, and I would just pop onto that. Please feel free to reach out to us, particularly myself in regards to tech things. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. I will put our contact information in that slideshow. This slideshow will be mailed out to you so that you have access to these slideshows, so that you have those resources, you can work through them, and then you can contact us. This video for this Zoom will actually also be embedded in that slideshow for you.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Peter and Ben. So appreciate your time this morning and for all the great information. Before we wrap up, just want to cover a couple of additional housekeeping items. One having to do with the symptom tracker, and I did see this question come up in the chat, but wanted to let everybody know that eventually, here within the next week to 10 days, you'll be receiving a text message, if you would like, each morning requesting that you complete the symptom tracker. Because we don't have all of our substitute teachers and their cell phone numbers set up right now, Hannah will go ahead and send out the symptom tracker link via email to all of you. So when you get that link, you can share it, not share it, sorry. You can save it as a bookmark or whatever is most convenient for you, so that when you are subbing in our schools, you can go ahead and complete that symptom tracker. Basically, the symptom tracker is reiterating your understanding in terms of the expectations with the different steps of containment, wearing a mask, not coming to work if you're ill, those sorts of things. And it's also asking you to confirm with us that you do not have any COVID-related symptoms. So that'll be something that'll be required every time you're working with us. Hannah will be monitoring that each morning or she'll look at the symptom tracker compared to the subs that are in our schools each day. And if in fact you're scheduled to be in our schools and we don't have the completion of that symptom tracker, please know that she's going to email you and follow up with you to ensure that we have that information each and every day for you. One of the things to know is that if in fact, even if it's a day that you are not, well, first of all, hopefully it goes without saying that if you are ill, you are not picking up a position. We understand that all of you do not like canceling a position after you have in fact accepted it. Please know that if in fact you need to cancel because you are sick, we support that reason and we do not want for you to be in the schools if in fact you are sick. We know that's going to happen. That's going to happen and that's going to come up. Please do not hesitate to cancel if in fact you are sick. With that being said, if in fact you do have symptoms, even if you're not in our school that day, if in fact if you've been in our schools 48 hours prior to your symptoms starting, we would ask that you reach out to myself or Hannah to let us know that you do in fact have symptoms, so that we can kind of work through that in terms of how how far previously you were in our schools, what the symptoms are, and all that sort of thing to ensure that we don't have any additional steps that need to be taken on our end in terms of ensuring the health and safety of students and staff. And so we ask that you provide that information to us. Please also know that Hannah and I are here for whatever you need. Our goal is to support you in all of your employment-related issues, topics, concerns, whether it's specifically having to do with subbing in our classrooms or if it has to do with your employment with Summit School District. We are here to support you so that you can concentrate and focus on the important work of what's happening in our classrooms. So please know that we are here to support you. We want for you to be in our classrooms. If in fact you're in our classrooms and something comes up that isn't comfortable, that you have a question on, please reach out to us, let us know. If you identify something that we might be able to do to further support you in terms of increasing your comfort level in the classroom, being with our students and instructing different cohorts, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to have all those discussions or conversations in terms of any type of accommodation that might increase your comfort level. With that being said, hopefully we've done a good job in terms of communicating with you the multiple layers of protection that we do have in place throughout the organization for both our students and our staff, and that by increasing that comfort level, we will see you each and every day in one of our schools. One of the other things to know is that we are currently recruiting substitute teachers. If you have any friends, relatives, acquaintances that you think might do a great job in terms of supporting our students, please refer them to us, reach out to us, give us their contact information, let them know that we are recruiting subs, and we'd love to make that connection to support all of you in your role of substitute teachers, and also ensure that we do have subs in front of our students when when our teachers are in fact absent. So with that, does anybody have any final questions or follow-up comments before we sign off for the afternoon? It is now afternoon, right? Yes, it's now afternoon. Okay, I don't see any hands up or anybody unmuting. So again, on behalf of myself and Hannah, Jill, Ben, Pater, Brandon, the rest of the instructional department that is online, we sincerely want to thank you for your work in our schools. We couldn't do this work without you. We so appreciate you. We are here to support you in whatever aspect is most helpful to you. Please do not hesitate to reach out to any of us. Have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you in our schools.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Take care.